you will see this will be borne out. My name is Deanne Matthews, and I had the honor of editing Black Unity, the Total Solution to Financial Independence and Happiness, for Mr. Terrance, amen. One of the most enriching experiences of my life. In a moment, he will be telling you about his book and the things we need to do as a people to raise ourselves out of the situation that others have had us in for too long. I give you one thought. The Willie Lynch letter, which he references in his book, was written in 1712. He said it had a 300-year guarantee. It is 2012. Listen to Mr. Amen and learn how to make that letter expire. Without further ado, Mr. Terrance, amen.
Thank you, Deanne. Just for a note, I wanted to let you know, Deanne also has a book out, and it's a great book. It's called The Freedom Guide to Music Creators. And it's a good book for people interested in going to get involved in the music industry and how to protect their work. So if you're into the music industry, you want to break in, you got to get that book. I want to first thank the creator for allowing me to be here with you. I want to thank you all for being here, taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with me. I want to thank Karen and the Marcus Book family for allowing me to have this launch here. So, thank you all. A while ago, I read an article from a speech given in 1972. It was about the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana. And so, just to kind of give you a feel of what's going on, I wanted to read just a few paragraphs from it. From every rural community in Alabama to the high-rise compounds of Chicago, we bring to this convention the agonies of the masses of our people. From the sprawling black cities of Watts and Nairobi in the west to the decay of Harlem and Roxbury in the east, the testimony we bear is the same. We are the witnesses to the social disaster. Our cities are crime-haunted dying grounds. Huge sectors of our youth and countless others face permanent unemployment. Those of us who work find our paychecks able to purchase less and less. Neither the courts nor the prisons contribute to anything resembling justice or reformation. The schools are unable or unwilling to educate our children for the real world of our struggles. Meanwhile, the officially approved epidemic of drugs threatens to wipe out the minds and strength of our best young warriors. Economic, cultural, and spiritual depression stalks Black America. And the price for survival often appears to be more than we are able to pay. On every side, in every area of our lives, the American institutions in which we have placed our trust are unable to cope with the crisis they have created by their single-minded dedication to profits for some and white supremacy above all. Now, you're probably asking me, well, what's he bringing up something that happened 40 years ago? Well, my point in bringing that up is the things that happened 40 years ago are still happening. So this is the reason why I brought it up. We have the highest rates of everything that we don't want to have. For example, our unemployment rate is double the amount in the white community. We want to talk about health. We have the highest rates of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, hypertension. And our government is allowing the middle class, which some of you are part of, to be decimated in order to make the wealthy wealthy. Okay, I didn't come here to depress you. I just came here to enlighten you, inform you, inspire you, and that's what my book is all about. You know, Black Unity, the Total Solution to Financial Independence and Happiness. So let me start by saying, I don't know if you noticed, but our buying power is almost $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year. Now this is after taxes, right? So if we were a nation, which we should be, we would be the 16th largest nation in the world. The 16th largest nation in the world. But the problem with that is, We spend 99% of that money out of our community. So my point is, if we just spend a little bit of that money, bring it back to our community, we could solve our own problems.
That's right.
And so I give examples of what's in my book, and I talk about that, how we can create new businesses that would create 1 million or more jobs with just 10% of that $1 trillion. A 100% guaranteed way to have our own affirmative action programs. You know what I'm saying? We can save money and invest in new businesses. For example, tax and legal advice, real estate, insurance. All this by simply doing what we've done in the past. This is not new. Last but not least, my book talks about why we haven't done something like this in the last 100 years. Okay? Okay. Now this may sound funny, but I want to sell 10 million books. Now I know y'all be saying, what is he talking about, 10 million books? This part is why you came here. The part I'm getting ready to talk about right now. This is the part that's going to let you know why we need this book and why we need to tell everybody we know about this book. Okay? Okay, now, I'm going to start off like this. There's a word that goes with this, but I'm not going to say that word. I'm going to let you think about it. You figure out what the word is, because I know you will. Once I get started, you'll understand. For those of you who don't, you really need my book. Okay? No, I mean, you know, some people may not get it, but it is very important. Now, also, some of you may not like what I say. You know, you may not want to hear what I have to say about this. But the truth hurts. You know, the truth hurts. But the truth also can set you free. Okay? So you ready?
Yes.
Okay. We are still working on plantations. They're called corporations. We exchange our overalls and headscarves for blue and white collars. So you're saying, but wait a minute, we make money. We make good money. Yes, we do. Absolutely. We make a lot of money. But as I said earlier, 99% of that money leaves our community and goes to the people who murdered, raped, and enslaved our ancestors. I got a question for you. So, what do you call that?
Slavery by another name.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
You can edit this one.
Now, do I have to repeat myself? Can I say that again? Do you want me to say it again? Because this is, if you don't get anything from this, you need to get this. Because this is what this is what's going to make you buy this book and tell everybody else to buy it. So do I need to repeat that? Maybe I need to say that again.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Say it
Okay.
again.
We are still working on the plantations, except now they're called corporations. We exchange our overalls and headscarves for blue and white collars. Yes, we are making money now. A lot of money. Yeah, we're not doing too bad. But we spend 99% of that money with the same people who murdered, raped, and enslaved our ancestors. So I ask again, what do you call that? Okay? But I want to end this on a positive note. This is Black History Month. So let me share a little history with you. You're actually sitting standing in history right now. This is Marcus Bookstore, the oldest black bookstore in the country. But you know what? We can make history right now too. We can make history and change the direction of where our people are headed. And it starts with the book. That is not just a book. It is a guide, a plan to better things. So, my point is, we hold the keys to our success. No one can help us outside do more than what we can do ourselves. Right? So, all we have to do is start putting ourselves first. That's it. Start putting ourselves first. What do I mean by that? Well, when you buy the book, buy it at a black bookstore, like Marcus Books. If you don't live in an area where there's a black bookstore, find a black bookstore online. They have online black bookstores now. Like marcusbookstores.com. That's why the name of the book is Black Unity, the Total Solution to Financial Independence and Happiness. Black Unity. Doesn't matter where you're at, as long as you're black. You know, so, but I do have a section in there, and that section is multiple places because I talk about the business aspect. That's what you're talking about. Us doing business in Africa, us traveling to Africa. We could save money and be educated in Africa. We could travel to Africa to see our history. You know, we could go to Africa to do business. You know, so all of that I covered. And yes, I totally agree. There's tons of opportunity because right now they're being. I have a section in that talks about how they're being used. We were slaves; they were colonized. You know, so they have some issues as well. I mean, you can see, you know, they may be independent, but they still rely on other people for their resources when they have all the resources. You know, so yeah, I deal with that as well. I talk about that as well.
You know, it's the true social network, I think, is the family and the church. And I think because in our community, the black community, the family is broken, husbands not loving their wives, you know, and this is a general thing even in America, you know. So it's like, I'm very pessimistic of just us African Americans being influenced by the immorality and the of this world and America. So could you speak more on maybe like how you see the family? How do you see the family aspect of, because I think that's why the Mexicans do thrive, because I mean they have big families. And Chinese, you know, the parents pretty much live for the kids. My mom, I love my mom, but she's like relying on me.
You can't find an Asian woman who's been through what your mom's been through, so it's kind of a hard comparison. Give them 200 years of beat down.
Yeah.
And told that they are the symbol of ugly,
That was.
they'd be the same way. So put it in context.
Well,
If I may I interject something? Because along what you're saying, when we're talking about Asian folks, Mexican folks, people of Arab descent, which is African anyway, but nonetheless, when you talk about all of these people, they have one thing in common. They have a country, a place to point to. Mm-hmm. They have a place of origin. They have a history that they can look at, and this history propels them. Most of what we have experienced in this country is a deprivation of our history. We don't know our history, so we don't know who we are. It's almost like we've been scattered to the four winds. And without some coalescing idea or history, we're fragmented. So in what you're saying, I hear you because it's true. But we have to find a way that, number one, we understand our history and who we are as people, and then number two, once we understand that, is to some unifying principle, and that unifying principle has to be economics, the way I see it. Because we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on anything, as a matter of fact. We're not monolithic. However, we should agree on economics, because without economics, everything that we see today that happens in our community is a direct result of economics. Because once you establish economic powers, you set your own way of doing your own way. You see empowerment, you see prosperity. You see people who are prospering, you don't see people who are killing themselves.
We're doing amazing things all over the country. You name it, education, health.
Yeah.
The problem is it's scattered.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is take the best of everything and nationalize it. And then that will give you an incentive when you know that you're getting the best of the best to want to work with this. But we can do this. It's not hard to do. We've done it before. This is not new. As I said, it was done 100 years ago and was very successful, except that there was some problems, and I know from the past, and I have this in the book, and this is what I try not to focus on. I try to get people to realize we got to stop idolizing these figureheads, because once the figurehead is gone, everything else is gone.
Yeah.
So we have to focus. I mean, we're all leaders. I mean, if you're going to your community, if you're doing something positive in your community, you're a leader. If you're supporting your community, working with your community, you are.
How is it that we accomplish these feats that you're talking about in terms of circulating money throughout our community? Because 60s, we had mom and pop stores. We had places where we could spend our money within our community. But when you look around our communities today, our typically owned businesses are owned by others. So how do you concentrate an effort whereby this knowledge is disseminated, and then you have that seed that will promote business growth? How does that occur? Is something I've wrestled with for a while.
Well, you make a good point, and that's one of the great things about technology now. And I agree with you. We did have our own businesses, and so to answer your question, with technology, you can do a lot of things on the internet. Like I was saying, the credit unions. So if we had our own credit unions, the money would stay in our communities through the banking system, or through the credit unions. We can have our own stores. Doesn't matter, it'll be some in the communities where the majority, but there will be some out, and you'll be able to still buy those through the internet. So the internet has opened up a lot of different doorways for us, and so that's one of the ways we can do that.
Kind of on that same line, does your book help motivate us to invest in our own? One of the challenges, and talk a little bit, but one of the challenges that we have is that I would love to come to your store and buy this shirt, but Walmart, because of their size, can undercut you by half. And I'm trying to keep, supposedly in my mind, I'm keeping money in my pocket by going to Walmart. Does your book help motivate us to say, you know what, I'm going to have to initially invest in this and not save a nickel at Walmart?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I deal with that is twofold. One way is it's an investment. That's what I said earlier. You have the opportunity to invest so you can make money. You know what I'm saying? You can actually make money. And through our volume buying power,
we can become our own Walmart. Like I said, we are a nation. We're 45, 50 million strong. Don't let them fool you talking about we 40 million. Government never tells you exactly. It's like they're telling you now we're in a great recession. We're not in a great, we're in a depression. But if you say that D word, you know, people will start panicking. So I hope that answers your question. We can actually pool our resources together. Like, let me give you an example. The Veterans Department, they just started buying in volume, just their department. They actually get cheaper drugs than the Medicare program because they buy in volume. Whereas the Medicare program, let's be real, some of these politicians in the pockets of these pharmaceutical companies, so their best interest is not ours. And so we actually, people who need to buy prescription drugs pay more. But because of the veterans, because they were going broke and didn't have the money, they just said finally, hey look, we can't do this anymore. And so they pool their resources together and they get cheaper drugs. The veterans get cheaper drugs than Medicare. And Medicare is like 10 times bigger. So we can't rely on the government. We have to rely on ourselves. Yes, sir.
So when you talked about other communities, I look at Mexican Americans. You can look at the Fruitvale district in Oakland and see. I was born in Oakland, and I remember when that district didn't exist as it does today. However, they have pooled their resources, if you will, and there's a whole community, and by way of that community, folks are becoming educated. You know, the second generation are becoming educated, thereby gaining more economic power. If it's just a small group, one small group, you're not going to really see that economic empowerment that it takes to rise above the conditions that we find ourselves in. So is there something, there has to be some kind of consortium or a way of thinking, a total mind change in order to be able to promote that. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, because just one or two people it's not going to do that, because we're everywhere.
Absolutely, within our community. As I said earlier, it's not just a book. This is not just a book. This is just the beginning. And when you read the book, you'll see it will answer your question.
Are you suggesting that we start our own credit union or use the existing one, which are not, for the most part, owned by us?
Well, that's not necessarily true. In certain communities, black communities, they have credit unions. So the way I would do that is both. We can start credit unions where we need to start them, and utilize the credit unions that are already in existence. Because I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think the brother said this is not new. What I'm talking about is not new. We've done this before. It's just that we've kind of gotten way off the beaten path. So I'm trying to get us to come on back.
People are very self-protective, especially within our community, you know, because if you got something, you're worried about the other person trying to get some of what you got, what you worked for, you know. So it's how are you going to eliminate those fears? Because really, that's an act of love.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I ended with. Remember, I said, you know, we have to start helping each other, supporting each other, protecting each other, and loving each other. And I have a section in the book that talks about that, so I deal with that. But to answer your question, getting back on the investment, if you had invested money in a certain thing, you would support it because, you know, you got your money in it. You see what I'm saying? So it gives you an opportunity to make money at the same time, help your community. So yes, it's going to take a change in the way we think. But I'm not talking about a major change. Like I said, we spent $1 trillion already. I'm not talking about money outside. We spend $1 trillion outside our community. I'm talking about 10%. 10 cents on the dollar. So that's why I'm saying this can be done. You know, it's not like a major, well, it is major because we aren't doing it. But it doesn't, it's not, you don't need a science degree, PhD to do this. We've been doing it. It's just in small pockets. What I'm trying to do is unite us so that we can all come together and take advantage of our volume, of our unity.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for writing the book, because I think a lot of times people need to be reminded of those things and reminded of the fact that they are investments and have guides to what they can do to be more supportive of the community. So guides like your book and putting it out there as like a step-by-step process, I think really helps and brings it together for people to be able to understand on the ground level.
Thank you. I want to say this thing too. A lot of times in the past, we've been taken advantage of by our own people, you know, and so we become very skeptical about someone trying to come bring us together and raise money, you know what I'm saying? So I deal with the fears in that, and without going into too much detail in the book, this can be done. It can be done. It's not hard to do. And so I like to tell people, like, either you're spending your money to help your community be the best that they can be, or you're going to continue to spend your money helping other communities be the best they can be. You do have a choice.
Good point.
So that also goes back to that major part I said about that word that somebody said. I mean, let's keep it real.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You've presented to us a plan for coming together and changing how we spend our money to benefit our communities. If we don't take these kind of steps, what do you think is likely to happen to African Americans in the United States in the coming decades?
Well, actually, it's already happening. I mean, you know, the signs are out there. I said earlier in my speech, the middle class is being decimated. Like you said, we really don't have a choice. We'll lose our money, we'll lose our buying power. It will start to regress instead of gain. So we should do it now while we do have the money, before, you know, things change and we won't have as much money as we have now. Why are people moving from all over the country back to the South? Because Atlanta, they're doing pretty well. They're doing very well.
North Carolina.
Black people, yes, all parts of the South, people moving from back east to the South. They leaving the North and going back South. I guess they realized the North wasn't all panned out to be. And so I say that to say that the examples are there. We just have to do it on a national level. And I address that in the book. I have a national plan, action plan in the book. And since it's getting late, I think,
Good evening. My name is Deanne D. Matthews, and I'm here with Terrance, Amen, author of Black Unity, the Total Solution to Financial Independence and Happiness. I had the great pleasure and honor of editing this book, and it is the most important book written by a black author of the century. The century is young, but it will still hold its place. Mr. Amen in his book discusses how, as African Americans, we can use the money we're already spending to be able to lift ourselves out of the economic situations we are in and restore health to the black community. Some who are listening to this may be aware of something called the Willie Lynch letter, whereby whites have used to divide us from one another and keep us weak. That letter was written in 1712, and it had a 300-year guarantee. It's 2012. Mr. Amen has given us the keys to be able to break that letter and put it in expiration on time. So I advise you to listen carefully. Thank you, Mr. Amen. One of the things that I remember from the book, having spent some time going through it, is that you notice that we have, as African Americans, we have almost $1 trillion in buying power.
yes.
And we seem to not be doing well by having all this buying power. So what do we need to do to get out from under this situation? We have a tremendous amount of money flowing through our hands, and yet our communities continue to decline. So share with us some of the things that your book has to offer.
Well, that's a great point, that we do have the money and the resources to change the situation in our community. The only problem is, the way we've been programmed, we spend our money with everyone else but ourselves. So I think the first part is to acknowledge and realize that we have a problem with our thinking and the way we spend our money. In other words, we can say all along that we love ourselves and we support ourselves, but in the sense of spending, in the dollar sense, we don't utilize those resources in our own community. So it's kind of hypocritical. So we need to really focus on how to change our thoughts, because that's where it first starts at. And I'm not talking about spending a whole lot of money in our community. I'm talking about spending 10% of that $1 trillion that we spend with everyone else in our community. And we can solve all the problems that we have in our community. And they're not just financial. So, but that's where we should start, build a financial base so that we can help each other create jobs, create businesses. And from there we can utilize the other resources in education, health, and build on those.
One of the things that my fellow African Americans that I work with often observe with anger is how it seems to be whenever there's an opportunity, a whole bunch of Asians, a whole bunch of Latinos, a whole bunch of people can somehow come together real quick and jump on it, and then we're wondering what happened. How is it, do you think, that other groups that have come to this country after its foundation have been able to work together, whereas we remain so fragmented and find it so difficult to seize opportunities that come into our path?
Well, as I said in my book, Black Unity, The Total Solution to Financial Independence and Happiness, our history is totally different from every other group that comes to this country. Because first of all, we didn't come to this country. We were brought to this country. Whereas other people, other groups, they came to this country willingly, and they came to this country with their culture intact, their language, their philosophy. And they are proud of that, and they promote that. Where our people, on the other hand, we were taught not to like our culture. We called each other everything but African. We just started calling ourselves African, I think, in the last 20, 30 years. So we have a different take than other groups, and that's why it's a lot easier for them, because they have a foundation, whereas we don't have a foundation. We don't have our language. We lost our language, we lost our culture, we lost our history. And so those things were detrimental, and as the years have gone by, it's gotten worse. And so we're becoming more and more disunited, rather than united, as opposed to other groups coming here become more united. And so they can build a foundation, they can build a power base, an economic base, where ours is diminishing. Because the further and further away we go, we get from our culture, what little culture we have, the less we care about ourselves.
I just mentioned that there are 900 million plus Africans in the world, and there's a lot of business opportunities that are available. How do you think as African Americans we should be availing ourselves of those opportunities with our brothers and sisters in Africa?
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, and I actually have a part in the book that addresses specifically to our brothers and sisters in Africa, because they've also had issues working with their people as well. But to answer your question, we need to reconnect with our brothers and sisters in Africa so that we can take advantage of their resources, and at the same time they can take advantage of our resources, because the people that are working with them right now, they only see dollars and cents, whereas we would come at them as working with our brothers and sisters to uplift both communities. And if we can do that, then we can do business in all areas in Africa, whether it be through distribution or products or advice, counseling, whatever. We can do all those things by just coming together and working together. So what I mean by that is that money that we spend in every other community, that can be the base on which we start, because let's be real, you need to have a financial foundation or financial base to help you set up these programs, because in the book I talk about re-education, education, health, family, business, financial, and so all those programs need financial support. So the first thing we want to do is to pool our resources, pool our finances together, and everybody benefits through investment opportunities. And so once that investment opportunity is set up, then we can start to expand on the programs that we have. And I talked about in the book, like, we start with credit unions, because credit unions are basically for its members, as opposed to banks who are for its stockholders. So there's a big difference, and so we can start in areas like that. We can also start in areas of starting other types of businesses that will generate income. And I'm not talking about businesses that we don't use. I'm talking about businesses that we use. Like, for example, legal and tax advice. We have organizations, national organizations of lawyers, national organizations of tax preparers, accountants. And so we go to H&R Block, but we can create our own H&R Block. And so these are the things that I'm talking about. I talk about that in the book in many different senses. First of all, you know, I use the example of an alcoholic. You know, the first thing an alcoholic has to realize is that they're an alcoholic, that they have a substance problem. So to answer your question, we have to first acknowledge that we have a problem, and we have to find the resources in order to deal with that problem. So in my book, I talk about it in different ways. One way is, first of all, acknowledging the problem. And then once you acknowledge the problem, then you can work on solving the problem.